Okay, I got one question for you all out there. Are you ready for a little nonsense, some claptrap and speculation? Because we've got lots of it for you today. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is a Truth or Trend. This is where Dr. Vrzal and myself, Dustin Strong, we take on the issues that people are asking questions about, and we try to provide a different perspective. We try to see, hey, is that person standing on the top of that mountain because they conquered that mountain, or are they up there
about to
because?
about to commit suicide.
Oh, man, I can't. That's a true story that somebody said that to Dr. V about a poster in his office. So we're here to answer your questions. We're here to give a different perspective, and we're here to receive your feedback and your criticism. We actually have been getting some fun comments and people really asking us some different things. And you know what? We're very compassionate and curious when others criticize us. And we today, Dr. V has taken the time to put together a whole presentation about some thoughts about how chronic stress actually, if I'm going to say what you said to me earlier, it's the cost of inactivity, the cost of ignoring the pain is what we're trying to get past. And we want people to understand the cost is huge. I was doing a little research before we started. And for those of you who have not ever heard of Dr. Vrzal, he wrote a book called The Headache Advantage. And I've had multiple conversations in the last couple of weeks of people who, would do anything to have one less migraine per month, right? And there are medications that are actually marketed because that's what they can do. But here we've got this information that if we can just get it to the right people, they don't ever have to have a headache again. And yes, I want to encourage all of you to believe that, embrace that, and share that with all these people, because there are billions of dollars that are being spent on headache medications, billions of dollars of opportunity lost because of migraine headaches. And so the inaction piece, we want to be able to give people specific actions to take, some possible solutions, and that's what we're here for. So Dr. V, talk to us about what you prepare, because you're so inspired to help people, right? That you're pushing you're pushing yourself beyond human limits to do this for everybody else. Talk to us.
Yeah. Well, and I love this title, really, transform or understand today and transform tomorrow. Ultimately, that's what this podcast is all about, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
Taking diverse subjects and what people are searching, what people are looking for, and trying to help empower change. Because ultimately, we were just talking offline about, you and I are pedal to the metal, 24/7. And so, I mean, that's a lot of why this is a hot subject for me, because I'm all about trying to get the most out of every minute of my life, ultimately. And
Right.
that means a little self-care. That means getting a good night's rest. That means eating properly, doing all the things that, somebody else might call anti-aging or brain help or any of it. It's all really the same package, and getting the most out of this thing called life. The alternate is the person taking the migraine medications or taking the drugs to,
Yes.
barely get off the couch to just exist. And I don't want to just exist. Go ahead. You have a
No, I was going to
power.
say amen to that, but we might lose it. No, I'm just kidding. What you were saying. But no, absolutely. In fact, I was having a conversation this morning with somebody talking about that. The more active they are, the more the energy they have. And these are, people who are getting into their 70s and they're still going, and they took action, right? And they continue to take action. And and I get it, when you're tired and you're in pain and you have these obstacles in your life, it's hard to take action sometimes. But what we want to help everybody with is what is the next right action to be able to get you to be having the abundant health and really enjoying every minute of life, like you and I are pretty much, right? I mean, we're redlining it a little bit, and that's we want to be able to help people who are living in that little hot zone too, but we want to get everybody feeling good. So
Energy begets energy. There's another Dr. V quote.
okay, yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Body in
So,
motion. I think somebody might have
right.
said that once or twice before, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, my example of that, I missed a couple workouts many years ago, and it's like, oh, I need to remember to work out when I get home. I was dragging, just trying to change, I don't know, work clothes or whatever. It's like, why is my energy so down? It's like, oh yeah,
I
and I
love it.
got
I
got
missed
a,
a couple of workouts a couple of years ago, right? Nice. Okay.
I guess that is what I said, isn't
I
it?
might have missed a workout this week, actually. So
Yeah, but then I got that little workout in. It's like, all right, let's go. Let's go create another presentation. Let's change the
nice,
world.
nice.
So
Yeah,
chronic stress doesn't affect how we feel, right? It affects and changes our future ultimately.
yeah,
I got into cortisol when I went through chiro school. It was like, oh, cortisol is the devil. It's catabolic. It breaks the body down. And then with intermittent fasting and that sort of stuff, I realized that there's ways God gave us cortisol for a reason, right? To
right.
get us through the stressful cycle. So what are the benefits of it? How can we harness it and make use of it, right? Knowledge is power. It's the first step. So you guys are here, you're listening, so let's capitalize on it. We got a lot of slides, so hopefully you're watching this on YouTube or able to see visuals, and we'll try to dictate as best as I can, huh?
Yeah. So yeah, I
But
think so those of you just listening, yeah, we do have slides, but we'll talk you through them a little bit if there are visuals for the visual learners out there.
right, so help me out if I forget, Dustin.
You got it.
So first, this slide is called The Hidden Impact of Chronic Stress and Adrenal Fatigue, right? It drains your energy. Chronic stress exhausts your adrenals and depletes your body. We just talked about energy begets energy. Use it properly, use your energy appropriately. But chronic stress disrupts balance, and hormones, immunity, mood, and digestion all take a hit, right? Cortisol is a catabolic hormone, and it steals from things like progesterone, testosterone, things that should have us feeling and functioning our best. And it damages over time. The longer it goes unchecked, the deeper the impact. So we want to recognize the consequence of inactivity, of not learning from what our body tells us before it becomes a dire problem. We have minimal choices. So healing is possible.
Well,
Stay tuned so you can
I'm going to
capitalize.
suggest
Bring
here
it.
that we have tools sometimes that help us ignore these signals so much that we game it, right? And like
Right.
you're saying here, you do get depleted. It truly does happen, and you do get exhausted. And I think I've seen actually so much more of what I would call adrenal exhaustion, because there are a lot of people out there who say, "Oh, that doesn't really exist. It's not really a thing." But when you see people who are struggling to get through day to day to day, and then you see how they respond to a little adrenal support, it's so informative that so many more people could benefit from just appreciating how tired their adrenals are in the first place,
Hmm.
right? And how
Hmm.
many things that they're doing to try to get over them, right?
Right.
Whether it be caffeine, whether it be, or herbs, right? You can't just continuously take herbals and then not live a life that allows you to repair. So carry on, sir. You're right on.
100%. Well, and this bottom tagline is so epic, right? Learn, you're all listening to this or watching this. Learn, heal, thrive. Your future self is counting on your action today.
Mm,
I mean, that's really what it's so many people. I mean, it's kind of like doing a bunch of caffeine. We're talking about adrenals, right? The person
right,
that's overstimulated on adrenals, you're borrowing from tomorrow to get through today.
right.
Right? It's kind of like crashing the environment. One of the books I'm reading right now, they talk about we're stealing from our grandkids with
Yeah.
all the glyphosate and the garbage we're using on in society. So don't
Well, it's a pretty
rob
common
your.
thing, right? That people tend to do that. They will borrow against tomorrow's health today,
Mhm.
often. Yeah.
Mhm.
But they're the
Mhm.
consequences of what we're talking about here. So please,
Yeah. So
chronic
learn
stress.
from them, right?
Yeah.
Chronic stress and adrenal fatigue what are they doing to you, right? When your body's stays in survival mode for too long, it starts to break down. We had hormonal imbalance. We have immune dysfunction. Right? Cortisol inhibits secretory IgA, so we have lower immune function and tagging for bugs, viruses, and toxic metals. We have digestive disorders like headaches.
Mhm.
We have mental and emotional struggles,
Yeah.
poor sleep quality, right? Cortisol should be at its lowest during sleep. So, inverse ratio between cortisol and melatonin. So we need that good, deep, restful sleep. Carrie Bowen says it takes energy to sleep and recover.
Yeah. That's a great
Aspect,
point. It takes
right?
energy to sleep. Gosh, I wish people knew that.
Right. And then we've got the muscle and joint pain. We're going to be talking about knee, ankle, hip pains that go along with cortisol fatigue,
Yeah.
adrenal fatigue. We got blood sugar imbalance. It desensitizes and resensitizes insulin receptors, right? And then we've got the cardiovascular strain and some big name cardiovascular problems and even cancers that's not on this chart because of the way cortisol compromises liver function.
Mm.
So these are not just symptoms, they are your body's cry for help. Recognize that. These are your body's cry for help. Listen, learn, take back control because you have the power. You can make better choices ultimately, right?
Yeah.
The long-term consequences of doing nothing, yuck, right? Ignoring the science today, right? They can lead to serious health challenges tomorrow. Again, don't steal from tomorrow to get through today. Learn. Your body's trying to get attention, right? Low back pain, increased resting heart rate's the easiest, kind of metric. A lot of people have rings and things to, track their sleep. There's you wake up in the morning and your ring, or your aura ring or something's going to tell you robbed from today to get through yesterday, right?
Right. It actually tells you if you're in a sleep debt now. I think a lot of them do, to say how far behind you are, which I think is really helpful for people to kind of understand that. But just to give a personal, note to this and a little bit of vulnerability, like if you ignore certain, because you're going to go over so many things, but any one of those that you can ignore for a while, it's going to pop up somewhere else later, and it's going to be worse. Like in my particular case, as you know, it's that the medial left knee, because I just kept just driving and driving and driving it to the point now where I can't train unless I absolutely take some time off and let it recover and heal, which is really hard, right? Because I can't really train myself as hard as I want to, because it's clearly damaging it at this point unless I'm doing everything that I can to make sure that that's getting the time it needs to recover. So most of this long weekend that we take, I actually was more focused on recovery than training, which, you want to get back to that training. But that's a big one. I mean, you very clearly, you figured it out when we were in Seattle. You're like, hey, let's take a look at that, shall we? Why are you
Right.
limping? I've heard that too many times,
Seriously, the health expert, and I was going to open with the sleep expert has spoken. Thanks for sharing, your tidbits about sleep, right? Too. It's
Yeah.
the antidote. Ultimately, that's a large part of the antidote for this chronic stress pattern that so many of us are stuck in. If the cost of inactivity, right, is potentially POTS, positional
Yeah.
orthostatic hypertension. Go
Talk
ahead.
about POTS a little bit, because a lot of people ask about POTS. And when people feel like they have POTS, it's almost one of those diagnoses where they feel like they have a death sentence and there's nothing that can be done. And because it's a bit mysterious, right? There's not a lot of good information out there. So talk a little bit more about POTS, please, for everybody.
Right. So it's adrenal fatigue. It's chronic cortisol is affecting the vagus nerve, so that their blood pressure can't calibrate when they stand up. Ultimately, it affects chronic adrenal affects the adrenal corticotrophic hormone as well. So they got the weakness of the tendons and ligaments. I mean, yeah, it's an adrenal thing, and medicine has steroids for it, which is just going to dig a deeper hole.
Right.
So that's why people feel like it's a death sentence, because right now it's kind of a very common diagnosis, kind of like fibromyalgia, the fourth one we're going to talk about, which they didn't have any medicines for. They basically just said, sucks to be you, it hurts all over the place.
Yeah. So
Sorry.
can you explain why the shots, right? The shots of cortisone are digging a deeper hole? Because I don't think a lot of people understand that, right? They think, oh, I got some relief. It must have healed it or must have fixed it. But why is that actually just putting you deeper into debt when you do that?
Right. You talking about if they did cortisone or prednisone
Yes.
or any of that sort of stuff? Yeah. I mean, we're very much we're stealing, we're overdriving the adrenaline. We call it, in AK, we used to call it whipping a dead horse.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to get energy out of something that's already exhausted. And so caffeine's doing the same thing as like a prednisone or a steroid would do, where it's trying to whip that horse and like get up, get up, get up, when it's giving you signs like POTS or chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia that's saying I'm beat down. I got nothing left. And again, caffeine stimulants, prednisone is all ways of further digging a bigger hole, deeper debt.
So when you hear somebody say they've got POTS, your first thought goes to How many times have you had to do those shots, or how many times have you? Because that's usually the answer. And what is the
Right.
next thing that you're thinking? Because you're thinking adrenal, obviously.
Right.
What are you finding are some like so the top things that you would bring into the picture for somebody with POTS?
I mean, my first supplement consideration, adrenal complex. I mean, those
Mhm.
herbs work really
Okay.
well. And
Okay.
rebuilding electrolytes, we need the sodium potassium balance, keep the blood flowing, keep sodium potassium aldosterone is one of the adrenal hormones, right?
Yep.
And that's control of the kidneys. So if we can regulate, get appropriate minerals in there, which are often processed out of our foods, right?
Right.
Then we get that back in. Then the electrolyte minerals, especially in this case, will help keep that balance going.
I think that's
So,
a great point. I think a lot of times that when I do talk to people about adrenals, they forget that potassium is one of the most major minerals for the adrenal glands. I think we think about vitamin C, maybe we think about the herbs, but potassium is grossly underrepresented in so many people's
mhm,
diets that I
mhm,
almost
mhm,
always make sure I'm giving them something with potassium in it, whether it is just insisting that they're eating avocados or black beans,
mhm,
or if they're
mhm.
taking, standard processes, easy mag with it. I want to make sure that that potassium is a part of that picture. And in fact, when people come into my clinic, I'm asking them the questions I'm asking them is how many days a week are you eating this food, this food, this food? Mostly what I'm looking for is their micronutrient deficiencies. And I'm definitely looking for every time, where on earth are you getting your potassium from? Because that's such a huge missing piece. But
For
go on.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, along those lines, I have a patient that, so Morton's neuroma is, on
Mm,
the ball of the foot. That's a kidney problem. That's right on kidney tonification point. And so I have a patient that gets Morton's neuroma, gets that pain whenever he eats table salt. Right. So he
right.
drives the mineral ratios in the wrong direction. Ends up with, so it's a great feedback for like what we're talking about here. For now, he recognized, oops, I go out to eat, or eat these bogus foods loaded with table salt, then we're going to end up with Morton's neuroma and these other long-term consequences affecting the kidney.
I mean, I know that I'm going to keep interrupting you here, and we're never going to get through your slides if I keep doing this. So I
We're
appreciate but I'm just as I'm like listening to even our conversation, as I keep thinking everything keeps coming back to potassium for me. I used to have somebody say it's all about the adrenals, but I don't hear people talk enough about potassium in the adrenals when you just did. And they
Mhm,
talk about
mhm.
reducing salt. That's a huge one. Stop, reducing sodium. But the conversation on the other end would be, well, wait a minute. Let's actually, why don't we make sure you get enough potassium? Right. I
Right.
think I think there's a lot there that could be a missing piece to this adrenal fatigue
So,
situation.
like a blood pressure medication is the answer, right? Take a
Right.
water pill.
Yeah. Or a beta blocker, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're talking potassium, so I figured we'd throw that under the bus while we're at
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely. Throw them all under
Yeah.
there.
And a point of clarification, you're not interrupting, you're adding value to the conversation.
Thank you,
Just
sir.
all right. So your future, as we just rabbit hold off on, your future is shaped by the choices you make today. Don't wait for disease to be your wake up call, right? The little knee pain, the low back, the L5 low back pain, ankle plantar fasciitis. These are all physical signs of chronic cortisol that is your early, there, God is intending them to be our early warning so that we can recognize what the cost is and make change. You have the power to change your story, and it starts with what you're learning right now, right? And it
Right.
starts with every change, every meal you eat. I mean, back 30 years ago, what was the book? Barry Sears, talked about you're as good as your last meal, ultimately,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Man,
So,
you're
I mean,
full of little quotes today. I got to grab these and start making posters with somebody standing on top of a mountain.
so make the positive changes, daily shifts, right, to reclaim your health and avoid the big C, the big cancers and the post-viral. I mean, we've got another stinking bug on the horizon that's just going to make a mockery of this aspect as well. We're going to talk about sulfation here in a second.
Okay.
Um, so, I mean, really, stress leaves physical clues. Your body speaks before the disease develops. So I'm so thankful for AI. I was talking about that. Uh, it's so easy to generate this now. The gracilis and the sartorius muscles get weak. The gastroc and soleus, the calf muscles get weak. When the adrenals are misfiring, the L5 goes out. T9 is kind of the primary circuit breaker for adrenal fatigue. When I take the wrong adrenal and when I feel like I'm stressed and I OD on adrenal supplements, the tips of the like 11th and 12th ribs here in the back, that right over the adrenals ultimately is the referred pain area for me.
Mm.
So adrene, I guess we might as well di
Yeah.
bad mojo here. We should have what am I trying to say? Described what the adrenals were when we started this, but ad is above, renal is kidney, so it's a little walnut shaped gland that sits above the kidneys, as we can see in kind of the center of the left side of the chart here, little adrenal glands. And really, they're intended to kind of be backup for all the other things. They have little fingers in all kinds of systems in the body that typically pick up the slack when we're under stress. But the challenge, the problem is we're under stress so much of our lives that we just whip a dead horse, as we've been describing. The other mechanism is the posterior tibialis muscle that holds the tibia and fibula, the two ankle muscles together, and then it goes into the underneath of the foot, the plantar fascia area. That muscle gets weak and compromised when the adrenals are a problem or compromised. So then we get the plantar fasciitis, we get the pronated arch, the dropping of the foot that people wear orthotics for. Yeah, that gives a little help, but fix the adrenals. That's the underlying problem that's going on there. And then if we keep ignoring that, we have that crashed plantar arch, then we're walking abnormally off the toe instead of straight off the toe. We're walking off kind of to the side, and that ultimately creates bunions. So these are all, anatomical, physical signs and symptoms that we've had adrenal fatigue for a very long time. When we've got the initial, high cortisol, that's a frontal headache, and that can reflect a chronic neurological overload, and adrenal fatigue patterns may accompany prolonged stress exposure. Again, we need to at this point recognize that we say stress, recognize that means physical stress, like an auto accident or overtraining, that sort of stuff. Chemical stress, which is in our environment all the time. We talked about caffeine, sugars. These are all chemical stressors, medications, or emotional stress. Most people think of emotional stress when we use the term stress. That's Hans Selye talked about on his 3 phases of stress. But all of that, any one of those, or you could be just barely hanging on with the physical stress, and then the emotional stressor throws you over the edge. So really have some reserves in our adrenal stress tank so that when the emotional stress happens, or when we, get into a season where we need to overtrain or overwork, we have a little bit to get through that, and we can handle it.
Well, hey, let's go back. Now I can see why you're geeking out about AI, man. I want this poster for my wall. I mean, it's so beautifully done. You can see all this. And you skipped out the frontal headache piece. I actually just had somebody ask me the other day, Dustin, what is the headache when it's right behind the eyes? What could it possibly be? And obviously, here's another major thing that could be driving this, but it could be a B1 thing, right? It could be an adrenal thing. It could be low stomach acid, but all of this is kind of related. And if you don't ultimately get to the adrenals, you're going to potentially be slipping right back into that space, right?
Thank you for that segue.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So frontal headaches is high cortisol. So then clinically, for us clinicians, we want to look at, is sulfation not breaking down that cortisol properly, or are they just in that chronic stress cycle where we need to support the left adrenal? In this case, left tends to be hyperadrenal, whereas right tends to be hypoadrenal for using the reflexes from the Vrzal technique. So yeah, frontal headaches is a big deal. Crown headaches is the other one that's going to go along with chronic high cortisol. So we're going to get into that over these next couple of slides. So we got the frontal headache. Chapter 7, I think, in the book goes over that and some of these triggers that we're going to talk about. So, and I guess the other thing I thought you were going to bring up was the meridian. I tied in there, the triple warmer meridian that goes to the circulation sacs. The third finger is hormones. And so when they have arthritis in the finger, for example, that means that there's a hormonal imbalance, typically adrenal, and male, female hormones. So all these things come together. And so the more as you listening are getting enlightened and understanding how this, I mean, we're preaching to the choir because you're here listening, you're wanting to grow either for yourself or to help others. the more of this we can kind of pull together, the more confident we get in our diagnostic skills. So the body adapts until it can't, right? We
Mm-hmm.
keep pushing, and then it could be that proverbial final stress, or we get rear-ended. I mean, incidentally, I do up the emotional stuff in every visit, and most accidents, most injuries happen when a person's redlining, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
one of my bad husband moments, my wife had got rear-ended. I'm like, what are you doing to
No.
attract this, you know?
No, 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 no. Oh, that was helpful at the time, I'm sure.
Yeah, that went over well. But she had, she was at the time she was commuting a lot, and so she had two. I mean, there were minor injuries,
Mm,
but it's like, what are you doing to attract that? And ultimately, myself included, when I broke a couple ribs, it's like I'm burning the candle, I'm running hard,
yep.
on overdrive, and then I go out to try to, burn out another ride, and I'm redlining, and then God's going to slow us down one way or another, whether it's a sickness or an injury.
Yep.
So that's what we want to have margin in life ultimately. So stress compensation creates predictable physical patterns, which we are talking about here, right? The tight lower back, which means L5 area, the rib tension around the tip of the 12th, 11th, and 12th ribs, represent autonomic imbalance between the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, which means sympathetic is the high stress, parasympathetic is rest, relax, recover, sex,
Mm,
digest. So
hmm.
we want that autonomic, the parasympathetic, that a lot of it's regulated through the vagus nerve, and which senses what's going on in the body. So the muscles that get weak is the calf muscles, the foot because of that posterior tibialis muscle, the fascial tension, which is diagnostically means B12 deficiency when we talk specifically about fascial tension. These can also alter posture and circulation, again, because we've got that knock knee thing that would go along with the dropping of the arch, the plantar
Mm,
arch.
mm.
So we've got the chronic stress chemistry, which affects the sleep, the digestion, the recovery. And you don't have to digest the steak or recover from the virus when you're running from the IRS or running
Right.
more timely situation. So when you're on the run, for example, all these other aspects, you don't need to make babies, you don't need to heal from or fight a virus, and you don't need to digest. So all these areas, these systems in the body start shutting down when we're in that chronic stress cycle. So
Wow.
take take the time to recover.
I think I'm
Because
leaving when I leave the office. I'm taking some adrenal complex with me. You've sold me, man. That's what I need.
it's a great herb. And speaking of, I mean, when we talk about, the ankle, hip, L5 pain, especially when the symptoms are plantar fasciitis, or medial knee pain, adrenal complex is the first supplement that I would typically check. We've got a lot of great herbs and products
Mhm.
in the health sector, and I use them all. But I mean, when it's physical problems like medial knee pain, plantar fasciitis, I'm adrenal complex is the first thing I'm going to test that person for.
Wow, you get that much. You get that much. So adrenal complex, what he's talking about is by MediHerb.
Yep.
It's a company that is out of Australia, and I think you mentioned that one because obviously the quality of the herbs are always going to be very important for that. But it does contain licorice, Romania, right? Those are the two major herbs that are in there for those of you who aren't familiar with that.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a pretty cool combination, and it does seem to be definitely very, very helpful, specifically in a clinical setting.
And with the licorice, it doesn't say in all the materials that it does still have some of the DGL in it, diglycerides licorice, which will help with some of the digestive challenges, right? Since
Right,
we're talking
right.
frontal headache, ultimately is kind of the ulcer kind of pattern. So DGL is a good consideration there.
Yep, yep. Okay, moving on.
Healing.
Yeah.
Yeah, healing. This is going to be a 5-hour podcast,
That's all right. They can pause it and listen to the rest later. Keep going.
huh? Good luck listening to it on 3x speed, huh? So healing begins with awareness. Again, kudos to y'all for being on here, looking and trying to grow, right? Small lifestyle changes create measurable biologic improvements. prioritize restorative sleep. Go to Dustin's sleep retreat,
Mhm.
right? Nervous system recovery, exercise, breath work. Again, exercise. I mean, I kind of made the example that, I was burnt, I was too tired to exercise at one point. Again, energy begets energy. So go get a little exercise, then you're going to realize the value of it and get hooked again to get the exercise in. Exercise is the fountain of youth. No question there, right? And nutrition improves stress resilience. Or it can make it worse.
Yeah.
If you're choosing nutrition that makes it worse, then oops, that doesn't work so well, right?
Right.
So listen to the recurring physical symptoms before they become chronic and before they become a medical emergency. Even medical emergencies are healable through these natural methods. It just may take a little bit more work, ultimately. You
Where'd
like
you get
that
that picture of
picture?
me on my way to work right there?
That's great. I did try to follow you on the road a time or two.
Yeah, it didn't work out so good.
I'm like, this is a new place. I don't know my way around. Yeah, so the effects of chronic cortisol, right? It's cortisol excess. It's derived from cholesterol, right?
Mhm.
So we got all those cholesterol issues. Cholesterol is a building block for most of the hormones. It increases carbohydrate formation and storage, right? So the junk in the trunk, the carbo belly, these are all potential, fat storage in the face. These are signs that we've been in that cortisol junky mode. I
Yep.
mean, the face storage in the face is a pretty typical symptom of prednisone use ultimately.
Mhm.
We've got the suppressed immunity. Again, it starts with secretory IgA, which the thymus secretes to tag toxic metals, to tag viruses, say, hey, immune system, go to work. That all gets shut down when we're in that chronic stress cycle. Catabolic effect, which means osteoporosis, right? And we talked about, with POTS the ligamentous laxity that would go along with chronic adrenal fatigue. And then we've got the insulin resistance because cells become less um, able to utilize insulin with this chronic cortisol. Noradrenaline is the cortisol precursor. So low noradrenaline means ADD or poor focus,
Mhm.
trouble staying on task, right?
Mhm.
How many people suffer with that, right? And then do
Yep.
a monster or some kind of energy drink to compensate and dig a bigger hole. So cortisol spins T3, the active thyroid hormone, backwards, basically deactivates it, if you will. Uh, and so then the thyroid TSH will go up. The thyroid's getting feedback that there's not enough of this necessary hormone. And so it starts overproducing, and that can cause tachycardias and things like that.
Wow. We'll go back to that last one. I'm sorry. I just want to break in here for a second. You mentioned something really interesting. I have two things actually. Well, everything you're saying is interesting. Okay, let's be clear. But two things I want to just zoom in on for a second. One
Please.
was you mentioned about how the thymus, when there's too much cortisol, will not be able to tag certain aspects of your immune reaction. So I have so many
Mhm.
people that will say that to me. I'm going and going and going, and then I go on vacation in Mexico and I get sick, right?
Yep. Mhm.
And that's exactly what we're talking about here, right? Is that the body it will do what it can, like you said earlier, until it can't. And then when you
Mhm.
finally slow down long enough, it's going to catch up, and then you're going to quote unquote get sick. But it's actually your body finally responding to an immune challenge that's been hanging out in there that your body
Mhm.
hasn't been able to respond to because you have so much stress. I think that's worth repeating. And if you're that person who gets sick every time you go on vacation, it's time that you start looking at your adrenals and giving yourself a little more break and support there, I would say, personally. Right?
Gospel. I got goosebumps with your share there. Thank you. Because I've done it to myself so many times, right?
Right. Yes. That's a huge sign. That's a huge, like, wake up, take care
Right,
of
right,
yourself.
right, right. All of this is wake up calls.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, what's it going to take to kind of start making change? And do you want to look like the guy with the small head there, or the guy with the big belly? So symptoms of excess cortisol, right? Again, this excess cortisol is what we're talking about as a primary trigger for frontal and crown headaches. Waking up in the middle of the night, cortisol starts going up when it should be at its lowest. It should be at its lowest at midnight, ultimately, right? And then at its highest to get us out of bed in the morning.
Right.
So we have poor recovery from exercise.
Mm.
Depression, low noradrenaline is a form of depression. So that's the ADD depressed mentality.
Right.
And then we've got high insulin levels because we're not using glucose properly. Uh, with the whole cortisol crash, and asthma is an adrenal deal at its problem. The adrenals should open the airway when we start running or when we elevate our heart rate. And so that's asthma. What, inhalers are typically steroid alternatives, right? Or
Yep.
antidotes. Try
That's
to
right.
create the same mechanism. So when we've got reduced fat burning, amenorrhea. So girls you start stealing from progesterone to make all that
Mm.
cortisol. And men, we steal from testosterone, so we have lower libido. Again, we don't need to make babies when we're running for our lives.
Right.
So all that takes a place, right? And so the reason the sumo wrestler picture was relevant here, the way a sumo wrestler gets to look like they do and have the added crazy mass that they have is by starving all day and eating, 10,000 calories before they go to bed.
Mm.
So
Wow.
that's a great way to store everything you eat as fat. And wouldn't you know, he's got tape around his right knee there too, huh?
Yeah, look at that.
We just talked about, chronic cortisol, and it creates a medial meniscus weakness where the sartorius and the gracilis muscle attached to that pes anseri right on the inside of the knee there, and it becomes weak and vulnerable under chronic stress.
Wow.
So let's not go there. So again, the frontal headache is chronic cortisol. So the triggers are cortisol, sleep loss, and which are almost one and the same, right? Or chronic caffeine, we're putting ourselves in that stress cycle day in, day out. Potential solutions we'll elaborate on as we go, but magnesium is a great way to help calm the nervous system, help us sleep deeper and recover, heal the adrenals. Sleep is restorative. Hopefully that's a big duh for everybody.
And it takes energy to sleep. Let's remind
It
you.
takes energy to thank you, Carrie Bone. And then adaptogens. There's all kinds of great adaptogens, rhodiola and schizandra and eleuthero and licorice to a minor degree. These are all herbs that help us adapt to the chronic stress.
Hmm.
And here's AI making it a little overwhelming.
That looks good to me.
But yeah, I mean, with adding the pictures and stuff makes it a little bit more understandable. So we're talking about common symptoms, signs, and or characteristics associated with frontal headaches, meaning cortisol excess, right? So we've got the pain in the front of the head. We have pain below the shoulder blades, which means T9. So pain,
Yeah.
ladies, that's a bra line area. We've got anxiety because of that chronic stress, chronic cortisol, the neurotransmitter that parallels chronic cortisol is high serotonin. So then we have in that OCD mechanism that would go along with it. Again, when we're running for our lives, we need to focus on safety and where we need to get. And so that's the serotonin will go up with the cortisol. Then depression, again, for all the different mechanisms, that's another 10-hour, 12-hour seminar.
Yeah.
Trouble
Yeah.
for both of us.
Mhm.
And then the trouble falling asleep, right? When cortisol is not going down like it needs to, we don't shut the brain off. Glutamate, the excitatory neurotransmitter, needs to convert to GABA to help us fall asleep. So when sulfation is compromised, we have trouble falling asleep. Burning in the stomach area, right? Think ulcer, which is the ultimate mechanism of these frontal headaches. And then we've got the H. pylori, which bugs are opportunists, right? And so we've got a
Mhm.
compromised stomach lining. So H. pylori moves in like a homeless person.
Yeah.
We've got the elevated blood pressure, right? Anything over 90 diastolic is considered elevated. Well, in this case, they're using 140 over 90 as a ballpark. That's a good place to start. We talked about weak ankles, reverse T3 on your thyroid panel again, because cortisol spins, deactivates thyroid hormone. Caffeine, did you need caffeine to get through your day? You might have an issue.
Mhm.
Talked about the high serotonin leading to OCD, obsessive behavior. We've got the blood sugar crashes and the stress-induced illnesses. So these are all, consequences. The takeaway again, frontal headaches, meaning high cortisol, they're often linked to stress, gut and stomach issues, hormonal imbalances, blood sugar dips, and more. So these are all things this is your body, God trying to say, hey, what you're doing isn't working so well, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Make a change. So the mechanism, this was the last headache of the seven that I identified the mechanism. I've been treating it for years at this point, or a decade or more. And then as we were putting the book together, recognized that norepinephrine is a gastroprotective neurotransmitter. So when we go into stress, norepinephrine gets released to protect the stomach lining as we're shutting down digestion. But in that chronic stress, then we end up with a deficiency of norepinephrine or noradrenaline, which would mean focus issues, leaves the stomach very weak and compromised, and then we end up with frontal headaches. So noradrenaline or norepinephrine wears many hats. It's a hormone that doubles as a neurotransmitter. It's uniquely tied to stress reactions. Uh, Ultimately, it's protective and it's going to help us focus. And I think I got the take home here is that chronic stress can prevent norepinephrine's important role in protecting the stomach lining. So
Wow.
that's a direct quote out of the book.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
So clinical conditions to consider. We've talked about this a little bit. POTS. We've got the chronic fatigue syndrome. Who's not fatigued, right? And the problem is,
Right.
when they eat sugar, they drink caffeine to try to get through. Ultimately, then we inhibit methylation and opens the door for things like Parkinson's disease. Fibromyalgia. Ultimately, there's a great colleague of ours wrote a book on the 25 different causes of fibromyalgia. It's all about the pattern and where those pain areas are. I call it a garbage can diagnosis, but basically it means pain everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chronic cortisol issues, post-viral dysautonomia. Again, the immune system's getting shut down under that chronic cortisol, so it doesn't fight those viruses properly. And then we've got cancer, ultimately, because we're inhibiting methylation, we're upregulating P450. That's a gnarly cancer predisposition, and sulfation, even, which we're going to talk about a bit here.
You keep
So
teasing us with this sulfation thing, man, but we got to get to the sulfation. We're all waiting for it.
that's a deep dive, and it's so exciting for us geeks.
Yeah.
So this is, in fact, this might even play. Is it gonna play? See watch the pupil should constrict and then dilate.
Oh yeah, the pupillary dilation test. Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
So that's one of the initial exams. Part of the initial exam in the office, where the pupil should constrict in its first exposure to light when the adrenals are fatigued. But in an ideal situation, it'll maintain that constriction for at least 24 seconds. That's the same mechanism that we need to focus to see far away. It also shapes the retina to some degree. So the more fatigued the adrenals are, the shorter the time frame that the body will be able to constrict the pupil. So when you like sunglasses, right? When pull an all-nighter, when live life like you and I do, then we want our sunglasses as soon as we go outside. When life is chill and we've been hanging on the beach in Hawaii for a week, then it's a little easier to tolerate the bright sun. So that's another initial indicator, like, oops, I pushed it a little too hard today. I'm running. When I'm feeling that way today, it means I pushed it too hard yesterday. I'm running at a deficit ultimately.
Wow. Yeah, yeah.
So that's another great indicator to give us a sign like, oops, stress is, starting to compromise, and we've got these other long-term consequences that could happen if we don't listen.
Wow.
Again, plantar fasciitis, ankle sprains,
Yeah,
typically, it's a little different story if somebody slide tackles, or you get playing
sure.
football and you get hit there directly. But if you're just walking even on an uneven surface, we should be able to calibrate properly or correct, for stepping over a rock or a curb or something. When the system, is compromised, then we're going to blow an ankle or a medial knee pain. L5 is the circuit breaker for that. So that lowest vertebra in the back will be weak and tender when the adrenals are compromised. And we've got sacral pain when sitting, because the sacroiliac joint also becomes compromised with chronic adrenal fatigue, and then poor focus. We talked
Wow.
about the low noradrenaline.
I wonder how many people watching are identifying with this. They're constantly getting T9 adjusted or L5
Right,
adjusted. They've got ankle sprains, medial knee pain. I mean, all of them.
right.
I
And
recognize these.
it's great for chiropractic
All
business,
these
right?
guys. Yeah.
Right. And then the postural hypotension, right? So the blood pressure dips when they stand up because the body, it's the same mechanism that tonifies the pupil, same mechanism needs to tonify the veins so the blood doesn't pool in the feet when we stand up. Need to keep
Right.
blood in the brain. That's
Right.
adrenals. And then the pupil we just demonstrated. And blood sugar, hypoglycemic blood. So the adrenals, right, need to prevent blood sugar from dipping too low. Pancreas needs to prevent blood sugar from going too high. So low blood sugar, hypoglycemia, is the adrenals not compensating for the crazy yo-yos that many of us are subjected to. Nearsighted, again, pupillary constriction and the shaping, the wrinkle that people get in the retina, that's typically an adrenal fatigue problem as well.
Wow.
Heel spurs, which just came up on as I clicked here, is chronic plantar fasciitis, if you will, because that's that fascia pulling on that where it attaches to the heel that then the body lays down bone to compensate for that chronic stress.
Wow. Wow.
Oof, this is going to be an all-day podcast. Sorry.
You're doing it.
Sorry,
You're doing it,
listeners.
man. Let's keep it going. Like I said, they can pause it and listen to the other half next week. I'll be in
Yeah.
England next week, anyways.
Oh, yeah. So maybe we'll make this a double. Maybe we'll release it half and half. Sorry, got me all fired up. Let's carry on. My adrenals are cranking.
Yeah,
So
hurry and get that done so your cortisol can drop and you can
enjoy a little bit of my long weekend. So we eat good fats. Then the body converts it through acetyl-CoA to cholesterol. Cholesterol then becomes pregnenolone. So under stress, that then the body shunts, if you will, to make cortisol. So it steals from progesterone, and so on to make cortisol. If we eat carbohydrates to try to get the energy, then it shunts through DHEA and shunts from estrogen and testosterone. So it skews us to the cortisol, if you will. And so sets up this whole vicious cycle where the body gets into a rut and opens the door. This is ultimately what opens the door for cancers from chronic stress. So again, the cortisol creates reverse T3. So we have the carb sugar cravings, which perpetuates the cycle, which is the red area on the right, which again increases the cortisol DHEA ratio, which facilitates good pathways or facilitates bad pathways and inhibits good pathways in the liver, phase 1, phase 2. Which then further perpetuate the increase of the cortisol DHEA ratio. And round we go, get stuck in that stress cycle, phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification become compromised, and we end up with a big ugly rut.
Wow. You're making a hardcore case here that we should all start with the adrenals at some point, or at least some level of adrenal support.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And trying to, help. I mean, adrenals are a great example of learning to listen to what our body's trying to tell us, right?
Yes.
Because every physical ache, every ailment has a mechanism like this, whether it's adrenals or liver or gonads or whatever. It's the body speaks. We just need to. You and I's goal is to help people understand what their body's trying to tell them. So a lot of people that listen to this podcast are pretty familiar with standard process products. Here's some of the ones that we would consider for adrenals. Ashwagandha is kind of my favorite for high cortisol problems. The second from the bottom, that rhodiola and schizandra is the other, kind of call that my second favorite for chronic hyperadrenal function or high cortisol. Then we've got we talked about adrenal complexes is wonderful for when it's knee, ankle stuff. Eleuthero's got great benefits for athletic performance and so on.
Now, when you say ashwagandha, just to be clear, there are two products for those who are using.
Thank you.
There's ashwagandha forte and there's ashwagandha complex. So can you make a determination between the two for us?
I have some input. Do you have input on when you would use one over the other?
I have been gravitating more towards ashwagandha forte personally, just because I know that sometimes there can be some stimulating, and I think of it more as helping people sleep at night because the reduction in cortisol that it can help with. Whereas I know that you use ashwagandha complex probably more than forte.
Correct. Yeah. So actually, you got me thinking that maybe I'll test ashwagandha forte if I'm trying to help people sleep. Thank you for that. Because I'm mostly using the ashwagandha complex in the morning, for the person that's in that swimming in the sea of cortisol.
Right. Yeah.
or for most of the stuff we're talking about, I find muscle testing wise, I find ashwagandha complex to be the one. I often tell the story of a gal that uh, was in college funding, so she'd do her whole year's worth of work in 2 months of a year, and just about halfway through that, she'd curl up in the corner in a big old stress ball.
Oh,
Uh,
geez. Yeah.
right about the time, at the time it was called withania, now it's called ashwagandha complex. I gave her two of those, and it's like, boom, okay, I can carry on, right?
Wow.
So, I mean,
Awesome.
it's profound in that benefit.
Well, just to be clear, the complex, just for those of you who want to know everything that's in it, there's also an herb called skullcap in a 4-to-1 extract. There's licorice in it, and there's Korean ginseng root in a 5-to-1. So there's 4 herbs in the complex versus just ashwagandha forte, which is just ashwagandha.
Which is probably why I'm using it in the morning for these types of mechanisms,
Yep.
whereas you're using the Forte,
At
and
night.
it's Forte has more, yeah, has more ashwagandha and does
Right.
not have these other herbs in it, which would
Right.
work great. In fact, I'm going to get some Forte and start testing myself at night to see if it gives me the energy to sleep.
There you go.
So these 3 arrows are areas in the where the knee is going to be tender. We can use these to determine which supplement, for example, is going to work the best. So this is all along the sartorius muscle that you might recognize. That upper fossa in sacro-occipital technique is considered the upper fossa, which is ultimately the insertion, the origin of the sartorius muscle. I like right in the belly of the muscle because I'll feel it. As a practitioner, I can feel it actually relax when I give them the right supplement. So I put, say, adrenal complex in the right hand, and I would expect that sartorius, the belly of the sartorius muscle, to settle down and calm and ultimately dissipate. And it'll go from a 8 scale 10 to I want it to be a 2 or less,
Mm,
telling me that that is the right herb. So we could actually do the same thing with each of these herbs to determine which one takes the most pain out of that belly of the sartorius muscle, and know that that is going to be the best one. Combine that with muscle testing, or instead of muscle testing, if that's the way you roll in
yeah.
practice. So I mentioned that pes anserine, where the semitendinosus, gracilis, and sartorius all attach, and so that where those attachments are is going to be tender when the adrenals are compromised. So it is another good area to use to determine what supplement is going to be the most efficacious. So excess cortisol is a net catabolic effect, if you will, which means bones and ligaments and tendons. It's derived from cholesterol. It increases carbohydrate storage and fat storage in the face. No, thank you, huh?
No.
So that then the person needs GLPs,
Yeah, right.
right? We talked about a fair bit the suppressed immunity and the insulin resistance. So nobody really wants to look like that with the striations, pendulous abdomen, weak
Right.
skin, if you will, the fat cheeks, moon face. These are all signs and symptoms of chronic cortisol excess. We can use cortisol to our benefit, ideally, or to our detriment, like the
Hmm.
staff worker here with probably some donuts on the desk and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So the cortisol, in response to physical or chemical stress, improves glucose metabolism short term, right? Increases pain tolerance, diminishes fatigue, and strengthens motivation. So this is really where intermittent fasting comes in and capitalizing on the benefit of cortisol. If you're a faster, if you're into that, and I use it periodically as well, but it ultimately comes down to how much the adrenals can handle it.
Right.
So if we're in this chronic cortisol stress, fasting is just another stressor, another straw on the camel's back to potentially break us down. So we want to use it in our favor, but wisely.
To that point, to say wisely, we talked
Mhm.
earlier about the importance of potassium for adrenal glands. And
Okay.
most people are already low in potassium. And then they go
Right.
and then they fast and they completely cut potassium out. So they go from a low state to a very low state of potassium. And that
Mm-hmm.
could definitely be impacting the adrenals in a horrible way and making it even worse. So one of the things that I've started to suggest to people who are going to do a 24 or a monk's fast of 36 hours or whatever is to load up on those for 3 to 4 days beforehand, right? Which to me means easy mag with the magnesium and the potassium in there.
Mm-hmm.
6 to 9 a day, I'll do for about 3 days
Mm.
before I go into a fast now, just to make sure.
So that's potassium and magnesium, the two most commonly deficient mineral. Well, in there with zinc as well, but two
Right.
heavy hitters. How would organically bound minerals compare with that potassium wise?
From what I understand, there's not enough for them to actually put it on the label. There is, a portion of it because it is kelp. When you have
Hmm.
something from the ocean, it's pretty fair to say that it has a representation of almost every mineral in it. So very
Okay.
small amounts, but it's a broader spectrum versus where they look at what's the buckwheat and Swiss chard and Easy Mag. They know they can
Hmm.
say, okay, there's this much potassium, there's this much magnesium in it.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. And then food wise, I mean, we should talk about high, food time potassium, right? Green leafies.
Yeah,
But most people think potassium in bananas. I mean, so
yeah,
bananas and potatoes, which, yeah, are great if they're good for your blood type. I'm a B blood
right,
type. O blood types and Bs, we do great on bananas. We're fine. And potentially sweet potatoes, another source of potassium.
right.
But in general, white potatoes are detrimental for the A blood type or the O blood type. So that doesn't end up being a great source of potassium. So just to, again, further substantiate your case for potentially why people are going to be low in potassium, in addition to all the stress, peeing it out.
And I would have to add to that list of foods rich in that avocado. I would say
Oh, yeah.
also
Thank you. Right.
black beans and sardines. People don't realize that sardines are actually a pretty decent source of potassium as well. Again, a lot of those minerals in those.
You making fun of my breakfast this morning? My sardines?
No way, man. Every day, every day.
That's right. We should create that daily challenge, sardine challenge, huh?
Somebody's already been
We should,
doing it. So
yeah,
it wasn't just us. It was everybody talking about this. So people have a 5 day sardine challenge these days. But
nice. Get the
yeah,
good EFAs up, get the potassium
right.
up. So many benefits, huh? So again, the muscles, sartorius, gracilis, gastrocnemius and soleus, which is the calf muscles, and that posterior tibialis. Shin splints. I didn't mention that. Shin splints is a posterior
Yeah.
tibialis weakness. That's an adrenal problem.
Hmm.
So spinal levels is C5, T9, and L5, and then the PI ilium. I mean, that's probably one of the most common low back adjustments for chiropractors, right? It's PI ilium and L5. That's all
Mm,
adrenal problems.
mm.
Scaphoid is that little bone right in the arch of the foot that drops again because of the posterior tibialis weakness. So we get a lot of these pink areas that were even better shown on the red sections of the chart earlier, which we're going to come back to in a few. Keep giving you all these teasers about stuff we're going to maybe talk to at some point this year. So corn is one that many people, that's maybe a Dr. V thing that I picked up, have adapted from the blood type diet, that corn, it stimulates cortisol release. It is actually a stressor and creates a lot of this knee, ankle, L5, low back pain. In the early days when I was first dabbling with the blood type diet 30 some odd years ago, I'd get L5 low back pain if I ate splurts on pizza, and I could tell that it had corn in the crust because
Oh,
L5 wake up.
wow.
I'd wake up in the morning feeling like an old man and kind of bent over. So those are, yeah, that's corn and its effect on cortisol for women. Corn will set up ovarian cysts almost within a day or two. So the polycystic ovary syndrome, that's most of that is corn induced. So again, stressors, caffeine, sugar, stimulants, all those lovely energy drinks, diet pills. There's so much. Skipping meals is the fasting aspect.
Yep.
Um, Fasting's great when it's used properly, but
Right.
so many people are already stressed out, and it just becomes another stress. Or
Yeah.
so injuries, getting rear-ended, any of that sort of stuff, overtraining. My favorite way to burn my adrenals out, overtraining.
Yeah. Your favorite way. I love it.
So we've got a lot of really good products to help it. Andrographis is going to help when the immune, and astragalus is for chronic immune problems,
Mm,
andrographis for acute immune problems. Neviton, I call that kind of my practice management aid because it'll help with that ADD sort of focus aspect of adrenals. So Neviton works really well for that.
mm.
Um, and Rumania, when there's autoimmune challenges beginning, then Rumania works really well. Zinc, so just about everybody's, zinc deficient,
Yeah.
and we have a slide showing signs and symptoms of zinc deficiency coming up in a few. Copper liver chelate not available anymore. We get some copper and zinc complex.
Yeah.
Uh,
Trace minerals B12 is actually the highest source of copper from what I could tell when looking at all of them.
Perfect. And so copper helps the adrenals, helps with collagen formation.
Yeah.
We've talked about it, ashwagandha. Carrie calls it wired and tired.
Yep. Yep. Excellent.
So an OCD. So ashwagandha is the bomb. Maybe now we should say ashwagandha forte at night or ashwagandha complex in the morning, as we learned doing our own podcast.
Wow, you
So I
still got a
like,
picture of Withania complex, the old school.
oh,
I love
let's
it.
see 2014 on this slide.
There you go.
So patient Sherry called this her happy pill.
Oh yeah. I
She
don't yell at
didn't.
people anymore. Is that my mom? Is my mom on your
Oh.
picture?
Right. So yeah, it's a very common one. It's a lovely supplement. Then Neviton, again, yeah, it calms the nerves, restores temporary balance.
Mhm.
So check it out. Rhodiola and ginseng, great for athletic performance, great for, I use this often with gals in those transition years, perimenopausal kind of years. Rhodiola and ginseng works really well there. Is really good for that hypothalamus pituitary adrenal HPA axis.
Mhm.
Works lovely there.
Yes. Now, yeah, I do have not to oversimplify things. I love this product so much for those people who are clearly in an absolute exhausted state. If they're doing adrenal desiccated, to kind of bring them back around, I do often I tell them on the days that they're really going to push themselves, this is the Viking herb. This is the one to take when you're going into battle, right? If you know it's going to be a day that's going to be more than a day where you can just chill out, then this is the one I
Mhm.
recommend that people bring along with them on those days.
What'd you call it? Viking?
The Viking herb, yeah, because
I
rhodiola is
like
a
it. All right.
flower, yeah. That
Okay.
the Vikings discovered if they ate it before battle, they would have better resilience. They would have better mental clarity. All of those aspects of what we know it does for us now.
And then they go to Fiji and take kava afterwards,
That's
huh?
right.
Nice, the Viking herb. I like it. So here you go. Sulfation, stomach cortisol, frontal headaches. These are all areas where sulfation plays a role. We're going to dig into this a little bit. I mean, we do four more podcasts on sulfation ultimately.
Mm.
This is super, super time relevant right now because it's my uh, sounding
Speculation.
board, my farm. Well, yeah, it's not even speculation at this point. Yeah, there's some of that. But I mean, the unfortunate reality is that there's a lot of speculation about um, Lyme infected ticks being released on society right now. And the common thread for all the Lyme variants is it inhibits sulfation. So it
Yeah.
sets up all these, the joint pain. And that's everybody know, well, Lyme likes to hang out in joints, right? Because of sulfation, because the joint areas get compromised. Again, they're opportunists. So that's part of what makes Lyme a stealth pathogen is it inhibits sulfation so that then the sulfation pathway in the liver doesn't identify those pathogens to be attacked by the immune system. And so this is on the front end of a new vax being released on the public for this Lyme stuff. So clinicians, it's already rampant. You're going to be seeing it more and more and more over coming weeks, months, and years. So again, be familiar with it. So these are some of the potential mechanisms, potential consequences, if you will, of underfunctioning sulfation. Got all the stomach and gut lining, right?
Mhm.
Again, think of integrity of tissues that are compromised when sulfation doesn't work. The mucosal protection, the mucosal production, antioxidant defense. So gastritis, reflux, bloating, low stomach acid, and again, frontal headaches should,
Mm.
should fit into that aspect. And then the cortisol, adrenal function, one of the main sulfation is the main pathway to break down cortisol when we're done with it. So if it doesn't, then we've got all these cortisol concerns and elevated or imbalanced cortisol, poor stress tolerance, fatigue, sleep disruption, and then the histamine aspects. Yeah. Dustin seemed like you had a little bit of that going on today, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Possibly. Yeah, a little bit.
sneezing early on and some of these things, histamine clearance, right? So we need to get the cortisol out of there to lower the histamine and inflammatory load, results in allergies, sinus pressure, frontal headaches, flushing, nausea, light sensitivity. So again, we talked about the need for sunglasses. These are all cortisol signs and symptoms.
Mm.
We want to check the sulfation pathway and its relationship to it, neurotransmitter catecholamine. So a lot of the stimulatory neurotransmitters are broken down in sulfation as well. Interesting that they have dopamine regulation on this part, but most of the dopamine is formed and metabolized in methylation specifically. So lots of good stuff here to talk about. The autonomic nervous system dysregulation. We got vagal irritation. Again, not enough parasympathetic. We've got trigeminal nerve. Remember that trigeminal nerve is all along the side of the head, and the vascular changes. Gut-brain axis gets dysregulated. So we end up with frontal headaches, stomach irritation, stress tolerance, fatigue for sure, brain fog, racing heart, and POTS-like symptoms, and then the sleep disturbance.
And chemical sensitivities. Now, you mentioned supporting sulfation. So what are some of the top things that you would use to support sulfation? You did mention the lime being an inhibitor of that. So there may be, at some point, we need to discuss a lime protocol. But when you say support sulfation, what are your top thoughts on that?
Spanish black radish,
Yep.
and thistle are my two faves, typically. Yeah.
Wait, Spanish black radish. What was the other one? I didn't hear the other.
Milk thistle.
Oh, milk thistle. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And then,
Okay.
so then we've got, live ton that also has milk thistle. That's
Yep.
another, third string, if you will. Yeah, great ones. Oregano is
Mm.
another one. So,
Mm.
Spanish black radish and oregano were my two typical starting points for Lyme until till the stealth pathogen protocol came out. So at the time, just before Myrrh, Viranon, and artemisinin were released, I had the opportunity to go for Carrie Bone or not. Lee Carroll was in town, and so we were able to go. I took him on a bike ride. We're
Nice.
riding up a hill, and I'm like, "Tell me about the effect of these three herbs on sulfation." And at the time, they didn't really have much insight on that. And so once I finally got them in my hot little hands, and I could start testing them. Wouldn't you know, all three of those herbs upregulate sulfation.
Wow.
So Viranon, Myrrh, and artemisinin all upregulate sulfation, so that we can tag these stealth pathogen bugs. The various forms of Lyme.
Nice.
So all of those are great options that I think we're going to talk about in a few. So support sulfation with the
I was going to say garlic. We got to mention garlic.
Oh yeah,
Talk
thank you.
about sulfation. Yeah.
For sure. Garlic, and then broccoli sprouts.
Yeah.
Mostly it's P450, but it helps with some of this. So taurine, interesting, isn't metabolized as a building block for proteins, but it stimulates bile production, and then in the gut, it stimulates the gut bacteria to make the other amino acids. It's kind of interesting thing I learned on the book I was listening to while I was writing today. Multitasking, keeping my cortisol through the roof.
A lot of people are supplementing with taurine these days. We could talk about that too. But I will mention that sardines are an excellent source of taurine right off the top, just so you know.
One might almost think sounds like we need to invest in some sardine company, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
So cofactors, molybdenum is one of my favorite minerals to facilitate, especially when falling asleep is a challenge.
Yep.
Molybdenum seems to help with that glutamate to GABA conversion. So molybdenum is a nice one. And then we've got all the different forms of magnesium. B6 helps with a lot of the neurotransmitters. B2 is a calming portion. Riboflavin is a calming portion of the B vitamins that helps with this pathway as well. Incidentally, yeast burns up riboflavin. So that's part of the mechanism for restless leg syndrome is overgrowth of yeast using up riboflavin and causing restless leg syndrome. Sidebar there.
B2 is a good addition to a yeast protocol or a candida protocol for sure.
Totally.
Yeah.
I love it. Twice, all the crazy things I treat, and cancers and cardiovascular problems and so on. Twice I've been promised a car, any kind of car I wanted for whatever if I could get rid of their problem. The craziest thing, it was restless leg syndrome that these people were that obsessed about getting handled. One of the dudes actually owned a auto dealership. I got him better in one visit with Cataplex B2.
Wow.
Neither of these guys have stepped up and given me a car yet.
You need
Are
to
you
call
hearing a little
somebody.
frustration, right? Hearing a little frustration in my voice.
You got to get them to sign something. Get it on tape.
That's right. Don't make empty promises. So glutathione support.
Oh, I
So
see how you got liposomal glutathione on there. We got a whole episode about
yeah,
that.
yeah, that was that was a
An AI thing.
AI thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, glutathione. I would say I'm not typically a fan of the liposomal. Rarely do I see that to test really well. ALA is a great thing as well, though. Selenium, whey protein.
Yeah.
Whey
Yeah.
protein, again, blood type specific. A non-secretors and B blood types, ABs tend to do well on whey.
Yeah.
Whew, man,
Yeah. We're going to make it. How many more you got to go?
what are we on? Slide number a few,
Yeah.
10, 15, something like that.
Well,
Your
I
body
mean,
wants to,
we can pick it up if you want to put a pause in this one because we've covered a lot in today's
yeah.
talk
Well, I
here.
think maybe the play is to just break it in half. Just make this
Sure.
2 podcasts, especially since you're out of town next week.
Sure.
Your body wants to heal. Just need to give it the right support sulfation again to break down the cortisol so we can heal, properly heal the gut, balance your stress, relieve headaches, restore energy, reclaim your life.
There it is.
Anti-inflammatory foods like sardines, like whole organic vegetables. These are all anti-inflammatory. Hydration and electrolytes we've talked about. Stress management. I like the book. I think I quoted this in one of the recent podcasts with us. The upside of stress. She
Yep.
talks about stress being when we look at stress as a threat, then that's going to drive the whole cortisol response and put us in a defeated mechanism. Whereas we look at the stress as a challenge, then we're going to find a way to solve it and move on and learn from it. So again, I just kind of encourage everybody to look at their stress as a challenge so that we can learn what your body's trying to tell us, learn what's going on, the mistakes we're making in life so we can improve. So we don't look like this chart all stressed out and freaked out with way too much information overload.
Right. Wow. We could do an episode on every single little thing on here, actually.
Seriously. So here's your wall poster for sulfation. And it matters because it supports detox, it balances stress hormones, it protects our stomach, it calms inflammation, it supports brain and mood, and it helps prevent headaches. So it's a biggie in so many ways.
Well, I think one of my biggest takeaways from today, I got to mention, is I often think of Spanish black radish to support sulfation, but the fact that you mentioned that Viranon from MediHerb and Artemis and myrrh, forte, all have support of the sulfation pathway, which is amazing because also those are helping to kill off the stealth pathogens that could be inhibiting it at the same time. So
Totally.
Yeah, what a powerful combination of things you can do.
I'm so excited to have those in our tool bags,
Yeah, definitely.
Again, that I was having to kind of dance around it years ago before those were available, and to have very succinct, specific tools for it now. So stress changes the body over time. Chronic stress affects the brain, hormones, and digestion. Understanding the stress patterns early can help prevent long-term consequences. Stress hormones remain elevated for long periods, creates poor stress recovery, weakens the digestive system, the stomach protection, and inflammation. The system overload may increase headaches and fatigue, frequent frontal headaches, muscle tension, sleep disruption, anxiety, low energy, brain fog, poor focus, digestive irritation. These are the long-term effects and the way they create physical symptoms. So muscle testing wise, when I have a lot of these patterns show up, I'm going to test the left adrenal, which is 2 inches up and 2 inches to the left of the umbilicus. That left is high cortisol. And then the sulfation pathway, if you put your left hand over the liver, over the right bottom part of your rib cage, the tip of your longest finger is going to be right on the P450 pathway, the phase one detoxification. The thenar eminence is going to be over the sulfation pathway. So if we have the thenar eminence, where the thenar eminence touches the liver, it'll be tender if when sulfation isn't working so well. So then a gentle rub over sulfation, if that negates the adrenal point, then I know it's a sulfation primary. That's where I need to direct my energy. If I rub over the left adrenal, the high cortisol point, and sulfation gets better, then I know I'm going to go after an herb like ashwagandha. I'm going to go after herbs that are going to stabilize the cortisol response. So that's how it works for me clinically. What we're trying to lay out here too is to help people understand the symptom patterns to identify the difference between the two ultimately, so that people, the public listening to this, can make appropriate changes in their health and in their lifestyle.
Right.
By prioritizing sleep, enhancing making sure to stay hydrated, right? And nutrient dense foods, exercise and breathing practices, and relaxation and stress calming, even singing, right? And gargling and that is good for the vagus nerve to help stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system, reducing chronic stress, energy, and long-term. It's going to be a big old benefit on your long-term health.
You mentioned exercise here, though, but if somebody's in extreme adrenal fatigue at some point, they should be doing lower impact, not this HIIT training, not pushing themselves to VO2 max, all of that, right? Intensity. Would you agree?
Thank you for bringing that 100%. So if you're in chronic adrenal fatigue, zone 2, would be the other way to talk about that. Yoga, the more low intense, not the heat, what do they call that? The heat,
hot yoga. Yeah.
Hot yoga. That's increasing the adrenal challenge of something like yoga that should be more calming, centering. So yeah, zone 2, this morning, I just went out and stayed, not trying to keep up with anybody, not racing, doing a low intensity, heart rate based ride to keep my adrenals healthy, so that then I can do on Wednesday, I can go do my high intensity ride, and Saturday when I do my high intensity stuff.
Nice.
So yes, thank you for that. So yes, cortisol modulating is going to be the low intensity zone 2, or for me, it's base season, which November to February-ish. It's typically when I'm going to build a lot of base and do most of my training in that zone, so that I can hit a higher peak later on with more high HIIT training. So those that are doing predominantly HIIT, CrossFit type stuff, it's good to balance that and modulate that with the low intensity training as well. So pain, again, over the frontal, this is chart kind of modified from the Headache Advantage book to help people kind of find the column where they most likely fit, so that we have the low back L5 type pain, obsessive and anxious, high blood pressure. These are all signs of high serotonin. So we're thinking sulfation in that case, or high cortisol. So we want to look at ashwagandha, typically ashwagandha complex. So that may help reduce stress, anxiety, and support blood pressure. If you're having trouble falling asleep, less than one bowel movement, we're thinking magnesium, right? So magnesium, again, drives sulfation, support better sleep and regularity. Then we've got joint pain and anxious, then we want to look at myrrh, because it affects it's going to help kill the bugs that are compromised in the sulfation pathway. That's Spanish black radish, because it'll drive detoxification, right? The sulfation pathway, and drainage as well. And it supports the balance and detoxification. ADHS is another product that's by another company's Biotics. And I find it to be very specific for reverse T3. Sometimes I use ashwagandha for reverse T3, but this one was designed fairly specifically to mitigate the reverse T3 that puts people in that fight or flight mode. I've got a patient she does a lot of research for a very well-known author, and when things are chill, she's on an adrenal desiccated, for her adrenals. When he rings her up and says, go time, we need to have, project X, Y, and Z done in the next 3 days, she goes into this fight or flight mode, and ADHS is the way to keep her, on track during that time. Again, in standard process, that would be ashwagandha complex. So some people tend to yo-yo between, fight or flight and, adrenal exhaustion and over revved adrenals. more often people are just chronically in that, burned out phase, or chronically in that overzealous phase.
Yeah.
So it kind of goes both ways. And then again, rhodiola and schizandra, another great way to facilitate this high cortisol issue. So here's liver pathway chart I
Hmm.
developed,
Hmm.
I don't know, 30 years ago or something, 20 years ago. Again, we're talking about sulfation, we're talking about methylation. Methylation gets downregulated, gets inhibited from chronic stress. Other things like toxic metals inhibit it, lead, mercury, arsenic. These things inhibit methylation. So green leafies, right? Whole food folate is a great supplement to facilitate that methylation pathway. Methionine is amino acid. It comes from beef, tuna, eggs as their highest egg food sources, and wouldn't you know, eggs have choline in them as well to facilitate this methylation pathway, head off cancers. Sulfation, MSG, monosodium glutamate, is a biggie to compromise the sulfation pathway. So if you go out to eat and have trouble falling asleep, or you put that spice package in your udon, in your top ramen, and you have trouble falling asleep, then you got MSG. Unfortunately, some of the high-end steak joints put MSG on their steaks, makes them taste really good, but then, lights the brain up. So and all your non-steroidal anti-inflammatory NSAIDs inhibit sulfation as well. Think of the conundrum, right? Taking an anti-inflammatory to break down inflammation, but you're compromising the pathway.
Right, that acetaminophen piece right there, compromising. What's interesting is that standard process at the Nutrition Innovation Center just came out with research showing that the Spanish black radish helps to detoxify the acetaminophen, right? More than anything else. So
Nice.
Spanish
Okay.
black radish is doing a lot there. So anybody who has reached for those in the past, it's probably a very good idea to go through some Spanish black radish at this point.
Great idea. Very well. So we want to facilitate sulfation ultimately when a person's doing that. Or anesthesia, incidentally, would be the
Yeah.
same, also goes through sulfation. I see, you have to get surgery or something. I see that anesthesia still show up in the liver 3 months later if we don't do
Wow.
something about it.
Wow.
It takes forever to metabolize. So all these great nutrients, molybdenum, zinc, copper, selenium, B6, B12, magnesium, B2, and
Wow.
folic acid are all wonderful nutrients to drive that pathway. So magnesium is a biggie when we're talking about a lot of the stuff we are and the stress manifestations. So norepinephrine or noradrenaline, these are some of the nutrients, the symptoms of depression, hypotension, short-sighted ptosis of the eye. So the droopy eye is a norepinephrine,
Mhm.
noradrenaline consideration, bronchoconstriction, right, which means asthma ultimately, and frontal headaches. Wouldn't you know?
Wow. Okay.
Hmm.
There it is.
That's interesting. Yeah. And the frontal headaches actually was by another researcher. This chart I developed before I had actually identified the mechanism. I just noticed that correlation. So we're all on the same page. It's kind of cool that other
Yeah.
people are seeing the same thing. On the chart that we have, a lot of the neurotransmitter points are there. This is here to talk about the fact that noradrenaline is the precursor to adrenaline and cortisol. So it ends up low, and that point is right in front of the ear, ultimately, to identify low noradrenaline. Adrenal complex, amazing supplement. Consideration for all medial knee, ankle, foot pain.
Wow. Hmm.
Low norepinephrine and gut dysfunction. Here we go. I think we're getting close.
It's all right. Like I
Sorry,
said, it's all good information. Nobody's at any time crunch to get through this, right? They can pause it whenever they want to.
sorry, I over prepared. Norepinephrine and the gut-brain axis, central nervous system, vagus nerve, uh, ENS regulate digestion. So again, this more correlation between the stress hormones and what's happening in the stomach and the gut biota and so on. It's the primary central nervous system neurotransmitter, and automatic dysfunction alters gastric emptying, secretion, and microbiome and visceral sensitivity. So we don't want to be sensitive in our organs. So we end up with the burning in the stomach area. These are signs of ulcers or potentially H. pylori that we'll want to kill and heal the stomach lining. Ocapepsin, a great way to heal the stomach lining ultimately. had patients that were literally spitting up blood. That ochrapepsin turned a lot of that around.
Wow.
So we've got low autonomic tone from gastric underfunctioning, right? So um, GLPs are going to create some of this, right? So a lot of peptides that people are doing for weight loss.
Right.
Um, so we want to support this aspect so that they don't end up, we can minimize symptoms ultimately from those medications by supporting these pathways. And then we've got the H. pylori that tends to burrow into the stomach lining when the stomach lining gets compromised and stomach acid goes low. We've got iron or B12 deficiency. B12 incidentally is made by lactobacillus organisms in the gut. So that's the beneficial relationship between the two. Having good, healthy gut bacteria can help us make B12 for energy and for protecting the stomach lining and so on. And that same biota facilitates vagus nerve or reduces vagal tone, or improves vagal tone, so we can heal the glands and organs as well. Autoimmune gastritis, low stomach acid opens the door for autoimmune conditions. So much to go on and talk about here. Thyroid dysfunction. I think I wrote an 8-hour seminar trying to do a 1-hour podcast. Sorry.
Now you're going to cover a lot of this in the headache summit that you're doing, right? As well.
Thanks for bringing that, circling back. Yeah, so some of this is applying it more to the physical body manifestations, and then I'll be dialing in on the frontal headache aspects of it and the high cortisol component on the headache summit through the Gata Institute.
I'll put a link in the comments below for anybody who wants to have the whole course on your headache summit, so they can do that.
Thank you, and they can get 20% off by using. Thanks to you, right? We can use the what was it, Dallas 20. Use the discount code Dallas 20 and save you 20% on that conference, on that summit. Very proud of the way that's unfolding. So support tyrosine, right? Supports dopamine and norepinephrine production.
It's essential for it, right?
It is it. Vitamin C assists in dopamine and beta hydroxylase, in collagen formation, and so much more, right? And detoxification. Whole food vitamin C, not ascorbic acid, is what we're referring to here. And then we've got B6, folate, B12, iron, and copper. They're all critical cofactors. So these are some of the things to help keep the brain functioning well and keep the sulfation pathway. You notice, backing up a little bit, a lot of the correlation between the same nutrients, right, to drive sulfation, to also keep the brain healthy, keep the neurotransmitters balanced. So the more that we understand, the more specific and succinct we can be. Zinc as a whole supports stomach lining regeneration, as well as detoxification. Glutamate, not glutamate, glutamine supports gut barrier integrity and DGL, as we mentioned earlier. Aloe, the thing with aloe is you have to find it without the sodium benzoate or potassium sorbate preservative, because those are a neurologic compromise. And so pretty much any liquid now, some of them are using citrus, so there are starting to be some healthier options, but most of them have a preservative. Had a patient that did really well on aloe, but she was very chemically sensitive. So she called the manufacturer and said, hey, I want some of your aloe, but can you send me some without sodium benzoate or potassium sorbate? And they said, sure, but you have to buy a keg minimum or a barrel. Had to buy a barrel minimum, and it'll be expired by the time it reaches your door. So kind of makes the point of what we're up against, or what manufacturers are up against with the aloe vera. I think they're using like citrus or grapefruit seed extract to preserve it lately, and so that's a nice step in the right direction.
Claims of people saying that it cures their thyroid conditions, just aloe alone. There's a lot of, and I know there's a study out there about it. I need to dive into that a little bit deeper. So it's important to note that's really worth repeating. No sodium benzoate and no potassium sorbate, right? That's what you stay away from in those. Right. Because that can be causing secondary problems. Maybe they're getting a great healing for their thyroid with it, but then you got to deal with what those chemicals have done to the body as well.
To the liver, right. So aloe helps the gut biota, right, and de-stresses the vagus nerve, which can help the thyroid and so on. But then are we taking something that's upregulating P450 and opening other problematic doors, if you will?
Right.
So these are from the Headache Advantage, some of the signs of zinc deficiency, white clouds in the fingernails. If you're not familiar with those, it takes 8 weeks to grow from cuticle to tip. And so you'll watch the little white cloud grow out of the finger as like if you ate a bunch of sugar and got all stressed out and sick, then you can have white cloud develop right next to the cuticle. Over the next 8 weeks, you can watch that grow out, hopefully, as you get the zinc deficiency handled. Great, easy indicator for fairly significant zinc deficiency by the time it shows up there.
Yeah.
Sicknesses, it comes on premenstrually, so zinc helps metabolize hormones. So with that hormonal barrage, I've had many gals that tend to get sick right about premenstrual time, so that's a good sign that zinc is necessary. Frontal or left-sided headaches, another sign of, or tension headaches. These are all signs of zinc, potential signs of zinc deficiency, especially if you have all three headaches. That's almost guaranteed zinc and or B1 deficiency.
Interesting. Okay, good to know.
Loss of, go ahead, you got something else?
No, I'm just thinking, you're just making my brain work. That's good. I mean, because I mean, zinc
Wonderful.
deficiency is one of the major ones that are missing, like you said.
Major.
Yeah.
Right. And fortunately, it got a lot of press, with COVID,
Yeah.
because people all
Yeah.
lost their sense of smell and taste and so on. So people are a lot more aware of the zinc deficiencies now. As we just mentioned, loss of smell or taste, poor tolerance of stress, again, because the zinc helps us break down the cortisol when we're done with it. Then we're going to have sugar cravings because food doesn't taste as well. So we want it to be more stimulating, which is part of the reason people gain weight when they stop smoking, because now foods taste better to them. And so they start eating more uh, than what they used to. Exposure to toxins causes zinc to be low. We did a podcast on tattoos and the ink and scarring and so on associated with that. We've got chemical sensitivities because zinc also helps balance and regulate P450, first phase of detoxification. We've got low levels of testosterone, again, for its hormonal aspects, and then the stomach aspects. Achilles tendonitis is typically, I would say it's always a viral problem, viral overload, because the toe off gait mechanism becomes compromised by a spleen point that's on the back of the toe. So as we flex that toe, it should contract that calf and the Achilles tendon as we run or walk or jump, and that mechanism gets compromised when there's a virus. So again, another sign that zinc deficiency is in there. Get that going. Zinc is essential for immune function, hormone balance, skin health, wound healing, and so much more. We got 12 points of so much more up there, don't we?
Yeah.
All right. Magnesium. We've talked about these, right? Electrolytes. These are all so wonderful. CoQ10. What's the product with CoQ10 in it?
It's B Vitality with CoQ10 as the standard process product with that I'm aware of. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also Cardio Plus will have some CoQ10 in it. And I think even Cardiotrophin PMG has some
Really?
CoQ10.
Awesome. That's news to me. That's good to know.
Yeah.
And then again, ashwagandha is amphoteric, meaning it helps with highs and lows on the cortisol. I mostly look at it for the high cortisol aspect, though. Lifestyle foundations: get good sleep, chill on the sugar, and then consider stress as a challenge, not as a threat. Embrace your stress so that you can maximize it. There's that wonderful chart. So the adrenal patterns of sartorius, gracilis, gastrocnemius, soleus, and posterior tib, all those lower extremity muscles, they get weak when the adrenals are compromised. And then the brain, when we're affecting norepinephrine and noradrenaline, then the supraspinatus muscle is general brain health. So that key rotator cuff muscle will be weak and compromised if it's brain primary. In other words, if we want to focus on the norepinephrine. So you can improve the way you handle stress, right? And the way you look at it. You now have the knowledge and the discipline to heal. You're listening to this, and if you're still with us, you're highly motivated. So very much good on you. And then I just put in here, what are your favorite nutrients? Because this is ultimately going to be done where we're going to have some feedback. But go ahead and put some, in the comments, the chat below, some of your favorite nutrients or ways to help manage and modulate stress, and we'll keep the conversation going.
Awesome. Is that it? We made it through? Hey,
made it through.
we did it.
All right.
Well, everybody, there's a long crash course on adrenals and all the things that you've been messing with them, cortisol, sulfation. I mean, but it all ties together and it all bears repeating. And I've heard these things many, many times, and I still have light bulb moments multiple times through the conversation. So we appreciate you all joining us in these conversations for sure. We want to make sure that you know that you are a part of the conversation. So your comments are very welcome. We love the comments. We love even, the ones that are a little bit, prickly, the ones that
Spicy, yeah.
others, yeah, the spicy ones. Yeah. We'll take all of them.
Yep. We're human. We're here to learn too.
That's right. Exactly. So yeah, if we've said anything to offend anybody, well, we're sorry. We didn't mean to do that. We just meant to bring a little bit of a conversation that it's worth having. And hopefully you all who are still listening think the same way. Any last thoughts, Dr. B, before we wrap this up and get them
Let's
back
go
to
de-stress. Take some magnesium.
That's right. Well, I think another way to look at it is that there are so many opportunities, so many more things we could be doing to help reduce the impacts of stress in our lives. And it's not just one thing. It's not just taking an adrenal complex or just taking a magnesium. The more you learn, the better you can actually manage all this and get yourself to a place of healing and understanding all of these things. It was great that you pointed all out the weaknesses that could be manifesting due to this, because each one of those is a way for you to go back and look, okay, what did I not do right? Did I eat too much of those corn tortillas this weekend? Did I, you know what I mean? All of those are questions that help if you really, truly want to be able to experience and enjoy life at the maximum. All of it's going to be helpful for you. So, all right.
So very cool. Love it.
So
keep the conversation going.
Yeah, that's right. We'll see you next time, guys. Thanks for listening. Bye.